3 men walked into a lighthouse. None of them ever walked out. No bodies, no blood, no distress signal, no explanation. Just a lighthouse, still running, and 3 men who had simply ceased to exist. This is the story of the Flannan Isles disappearance. December 1900, the Outer Hebrides, Scotland. There are places in this world so remote, so utterly cut off from everything, that if something goes wrong out there, no one will know for weeks. The Flannan Isles are one of those places. A cluster of jagged rocks rising from the North Atlantic, miles from the nearest shore, battered by some of the most violent seas on Earth. The lighthouse there had only been operational for a year. It was built specifically because ships kept dying on those rocks, and the 3 men stationed inside it were experienced keepers. They knew the sea. They knew the danger. They had every reason to stay put. And yet, when the relief boat finally reached the island, the lighthouse beam was dark. It had been dark for 11 days, and what the crew found when they climbed those stairs would generate theories, arguments, and sleepless nights for the next 120 years. One detail from that lighthouse has never been satisfactorily explained: a single overturned chair. We will come back to that chair, because whatever tipped it over, it happened fast. The 3 keepers were James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. Ducat was the principal keeper, 50 years old, 20 years of experience behind him. Marshall was his first assistant, 28 years old. MacArthur was a substitute keeper, brought in at the last minute to replace a man who had fallen ill. These were not nervous men. They were not reckless men. Ducat, in particular, was known as one of the most reliable lighthouse keepers in the Northern Lighthouse Board's entire service. If something rattled James Ducat, it was worth being rattled about. Their last confirmed log entry was dated December 15, 1900. 11 days of silence followed. The Hesperus, the relief steamer, arrived on December 26. Captain Jim Harvey sounded his horn as he approached the island. Standard procedure. A signal to let the keepers know the boat was coming, so someone could meet them at the landing. Nobody came. He sounded it again. Still nothing. A crew member named Joseph Moore was sent ashore first. He climbed the path toward the lighthouse. The gate to the compound was closed but not locked. The entrance door was shut. He pushed it open and stepped inside. The lamp was clean and ready. The oil was full. The machinery was wound. Someone had prepared that lighthouse to function. But the clock on the wall had stopped. And in the kitchen, pushed back from the table but not fallen, there was an overturned chair. A meal had been started but not finished. One set of outdoor oilskins still hung by the door. Those oilskins belonged to Donald MacArthur. Moore searched the entire building. There was no one there. He came back out, stared at the empty rocks around him, and signaled the ship. The men were gone. But here is where it gets stranger. Captain Harvey sent a telegram to the Northern Lighthouse Board that day. He described everything Moore had found. He noted the overturned chair, the half-eaten meal, the missing men. He also noted something that the official reports would later try to downplay. The West Landing, the side of the island facing the full weight of the Atlantic, had been devastated. Iron railings had been bent. A wooden box weighing more than 300 pounds had been shifted to the office foundation. Rock faces had been stripped. Whatever had hit that coastline, it had hit with extraordinary force. If you have a theory for me already, keep it in mind. I will ask you about it at the end. The Northern Lighthouse Board launched a formal investigation. A superintendent named Robert Muirhead was appointed to lead it. He had known these men personally. He had hired 2 of them himself. Muirhead arrived at the island and spent several days going through everything. He read the log. He inspected the damage. He interviewed more, and when he filed his report, he was careful and measured. But between the lines, you could read a man who had no idea where he was. The log entries were the most disturbing part. December 12th. Duckett wrote that the storm was so severe it had shaken the entire building. He noted that Marshall had been praying. Grown men, experienced keepers, praying during a storm. That alone was unsettling. On December 13th, another entry. The storm continued. MacArthur, who Duckett described as a man not easily upset, had been weeping. December 15th. The storm had passed. The sea was calm. Duckett's final entry was almost cheerful. He wrote that everything was in order and that the men were looking forward to Relief Day. That was the last thing any of them ever wrote. Muirhead concluded that all three men had gone to the West Landing to secure equipment before an unexpected second storm hit. The overturned chair suggested one man had stood up suddenly. MacArthur's oilskins still hanging inside suggested he had not had time to put them on. The theory was that a freak wave had taken all three men off the rocks and into the sea. It was a logical conclusion, and it has never fully satisfied anyone, because the timing makes almost no sense. The West Landing damage appears to have occurred around December 12th or 13th, during the recorded storm, but the log entries show the men were still alive and functioning on December 15th. If they went to check the landing after that, the sea would have been calming, not raging. Why would three experienced men, all at once, stand at the edge of a wave-swept landing in dangerous conditions? They knew the rules. They were required to keep one man in the lighthouse at all times. Always. All three were outside. All three were gone. The most disturbing part is still ahead. Think about what we know about these men. James Ducat, a husband, a father, a man who had spent 2 decades on the sea and understood better than almost anyone alive what the water could do. His wife, Anne, was waiting for him on the mainland. His children were waiting. He was 11 days from going home. Thomas Marshall was young, 28, his whole life ahead of him. Donald MacArthur, the last-minute replacement, was there almost by accident. He had been called in when another man got sick. He had no reason to be on that island at all. 3 families, 3 Christmas dinners that never happened, and no one ever brought them anything. No bodies were recovered. No wreckage tied to the men was ever found. The families had no graves to visit, no moment of confirmation, no ending. Just the slow passage of years and the permanent open wound of not knowing. That absence is its own kind of violence. Now, the theories. The first, a rogue wave or series of waves. This is the official explanation, and it is not as simple as it sounds. The North Atlantic in winter does not produce ordinary waves. It produces walls of water, sudden and catastrophic, capable of sweeping a rock face clean in seconds. The West Landing damage supports this. The overturned chair supports this. One man startled to his feet by something he saw through the window. 3 men at the landing at once might be explained if the damage was more severe than expected and required all hands. It is plausible. But the timing gap between the storm and the disappearance has never been resolved. The second theory, a mental breakdown or violence between the men. The log entries describe emotional extremes: fear, weeping, prayer. Some researchers have suggested that prolonged isolation in extreme conditions can fracture even the most stable mind. A fight, a tragedy on the rocks above the sea. Then one final man, unable to live with what had happened, stepping off the edge himself. It sounds extreme, but it has happened at isolated postings before. The problem is, there is no physical evidence of violence anywhere in the lighthouse. Nothing broken, nothing bloodied, nothing that points that way. The third theory is the one people do not like to say out loud. The sea did not take these men. Something else did. A chance encounter with another vessel, men taken aboard against their will or by desperate circumstance. Smugglers operated in those waters. There were other boats. There were other dangers. It is the theory with the least evidence and the most enduring grip on the imagination, because it implies someone out there knew what happened and never said a word. No theory fully holds. Every single one breaks down against at least one fact that will not bend. And that is where we are left. A lighthouse still standing on those rocks. A log that ends mid-sentence in December 1900. 3 names that became a mystery so perfect it almost feels constructed. But it was not constructed. 3 real men. 3 real families. Gone. The chair is still overturned in history. Nobody has ever said it right. So what do you think really happened out there? Was it the sea? Was it something between those men? Was it something none of the official theories will admit? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and on a case like this, your theory might be the one that finally makes sense of it. Next week, we leave Scotland behind and travel to a country where a mystery has been buried for decades, waiting for someone to look closely enough. Subscribe now, because that one will shake you.